Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, they're at it again. It is a never-ending struggle for patriots to keep their Second Amendment. And the ATF has found a new way that so far seems to be, although not lawful, seems to be pretty good at getting rid of businesses that sell guns and firearms to citizens who are law-abiding. Remember that. A lot of people who challenge the Second Amendment will say that, well, there's so many loopholes into how you can get a firearm illegally. And that's the key word, illegally. Meaning that it doesn't matter how many laws you pass against the Second Amendment, although I have no idea why in the world any law should be passed against the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment is already law. It's the law of the land. It doesn't matter how many you pass. Please consider this. A criminal is criminal by definition. And what is the definition of a criminal? I'll paraphrase it here, but someone who does not abide by the law. So the only people that this thing that the ATF is doing, which is not an elected governmental organization, right? Remember that. It is not elected by the people. The only thing that it does is it hurts private citizens. It hurts your ability as a law-abiding citizen to own a firearm in order to protect yourself against anything. And yes, including the one thing that the founding fathers sought it to be used for, including to protect yourself against a government that one day may become tyrannical and want to cause harm to you and your family. That is the main reason. Let's not get ourselves confused here, all right? For those of you that are not proponents of the Second Amendment, let's not get ourselves confused. The reason why the Second Amendment was put as the Second Amendment is because it is the second most important thing for freedom, on top of being able to say whatever the heck you want to say, as long as you don't hurt someone physically. Right? So for those people that say, oh, you're hurting my feelings, you should be censored. So what? Don't watch. Don't read. Don't hear if it hurts your feelings. The Second Amendment is what keeps us free as a people. And it is what keeps us safe from governments that one day can become tyrannical. If anything, the last 2 or 3 years, not only here in the United States, but in countries that don't have the Second Amendment, should have taught you something. But just like history shows, humans, they don't like to learn from history. Leaked ATF documents reveal aggressive push to shut down gun stores. And why is this important, ladies and gentlemen? It's important for two things, and I'm going to go over them with you here in a minute. In 2021, the Biden administration announced a new zero tolerance. Now, you have to understand this zero tolerance. It may sound good. Oh, it's for safety. No, it's not, ladies and gentlemen. It's not for safety whatsoever. And I'm going to explain to you why when we get to it. For revoking the licenses of FFLs, pretty much dealers that are licensed to sell firearms. As part of this new policy, the ATF recently updated the Federal Firearms Administration Action Policy and Procedures. Well, how did they update it? The ATF has changed its focus from regulating the gun industry to destroying it by whatever means possible, eliminating access to firearms by putting as many gun dealers as possible out of business. And this is how they're doing it, ladies and gentlemen. And then I'm going to give you a scenario that completely takes us away from firearms so you can see how asinine this is. But in a way, it's not asinine to them. Let me tell you something real quick. I did a video a really long time ago, and I know I'm going to tell you a story, but you all know that's my style. I did a video a very long time ago about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whatever her name was, the lady that was in the Supreme Court. She was a Supreme Court justice for a very long time. I did a video and a lot of people got angry at that video, and I had to delete it because there was so much hate in the comments, because people have such a short attention span in general. I'm not saying you do, okay? So don't get triggered. But people in general have such a short attention span. And those that watch the video all the way through, They understood where I was getting at. But those that watched it for like the first minute and then shut it off and went to the comments section to, say whatever they wanted to say, they did not get it. And this is what that video was about. It seemed on that video that I was giving that judge, Ruth Gator Ginskridge, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but that I was giving her accolades. But I wasn't. What I was doing is I was showing how no matter how many times this person was challenged in life, that she stood to her guns. She stood to her ideals. Whether we agree with those ideals or not, she stood by them and she lived them. She even missed her husband's funeral to go to work. This is how committed to her ideals she was. Again, whether we agreed with them or not. Me personally, I did not agree with almost any of her ideals. But what I wanted to show on that video was that even the crazies, the reason that they win so much is because it doesn't matter how crazy of a notion it is that they're pushing onto the public, they stick together, they take action, they scream the loudest. Have you ever seen one of those crazies whenever they're confronted with the truth? They just start screaming out of the top of their lungs, or they go to a speech that someone is making and then they just start disturbing that speech without listening to what they're saying. They stick together no matter how crazy the notion of their argument is, Whereas the people that are sane, what do we want? What do sane people want? What does anyone that you know who's a sane person want? We want to have a peaceful life. We don't really want to have to fight with anyone. We don't want to have to scream. I can talk about myself personally. I don't like confrontation. I can, stand up to confrontation, but I don't like it. I just want to live a peaceful life. I just want to be let alone. So those type of people that just want to be let alone, they seem to take a lot more. It seems to take a lot more before they actually stand up and say, no, not anymore. It's just like 1776. Do you think that 1776 occurred from one day to another? No, you had a whole bunch of colonists who for years and years and years put up with the crap from the crazies. They put up with everything. And finally one day they said, we've had enough. We can no longer take it anymore. After so many of their liberties had been taken from them, they finally said, we cannot take it anymore. And then that's what happened. That's when 1776 started, because we could not take it anymore. The colonists said we could not live under this tyranny anymore. So the solution here, in my opinion, is that we stick together. Get your AR-15s. Get your firearms. Buy them. Don't care what these people are doing. Continue to buy them. Continue to buy, freedom seeds. Continue to support your local dealers. Continue to do what it is that keeps us free, ladies and gentlemen. Well, let me show you here how it is that this administration is trying to strip, once again, our right under the Second Amendment. Here it says that this last year there was about 200% increase in FFL revocations since the enactment of the ATF's zero tolerance policy. Of course, license revocations are a lengthy process, and this number almost certainly will continue to increase. So a 200%, revocation rate than under the prior guidance. And this is what the new guidance is: zero tolerance. Absent extraordinary circumstances on initial violation, right? And here's what the old policy was. Prior guidance here is appropriate circumstances based on an initial set of violations. So now, picture a restaurant. You know how you go to a restaurant and in some of them they have like an A for the food safety inspection. They have an A or a B or a C, and and it kind of like lets you know, hey, what kind of service am I going to be getting here as far as sanitation goes, right? So picture a restaurant and picture this new policy, this zero tolerance being applied to a restaurant. I would say that the policies that are applied to a restaurant for safety reasons are probably just as important, if not more, really, to tell you the truth, than the ones that are applied to firearms dealers. Why is that? Because so many more people visit restaurants on such a more frequent basis. So I would say it's very important. So why aren't they applying this to restaurants? But imagine if you went into a restaurant and you said, oh, I found a piece of rice on the floor. You're out of compliance, zero tolerance, we're shutting you down. That's what they're doing to these FFLs. That's what they're doing to these gun shops. Where if you go to a restaurant now and you see a C or a B, they give them time to correct whatever it is that they found wrong with them. And that's how it should be. Why is that? Well, because the policies that are passed and the regulations by which businesses nowadays have to abide by in order to stay in business, they are so lengthy that the average is almost like, you know, when you get an app or something and they say, okay, take a look at the terms. It's almost like that, but worse. Well, a lot of businesses, no matter what kind of business they are, they can't afford the time nor the lawyers that it would take for them to go over the hundreds of pages that they have to go over and understand every single word that there is in those pages. But now, if they find one discrepancy, they're shutting these people down. Well, what's the big deal about that, AP? Just more FFLs or more gun stores will come up of people that have actually read the entire regulation, and they'll do it right. The problem is that they make it so complicated that new FFLs don't step up and open businesses at the same rate that they're closing. So we have less availability or less accessibility to be able to buy a firearm. And I'm going to tell you how it is that we can overcome this and how we will win this. Why? Because humans, when they are faced with a problem and that problem is big enough, they learn to overcome. So here, to finish this off, when an FFL goes out of business, it is required to send every firearm transaction from the form 4473, it's the one that you used to fill out by hand, but now you do it electronically, to the ATF, along with its bound book, meaning the book that they keep on paper if they have any that way. As of November 2021, ATF has turned almost 1,920,000,000 of these records into an illegal, and the word illegal is not right here, it's unlawful, into an unlawful gun registry. According to the ATF, almost 900 million records are already in electronic format. What are they creating? An unlawful registry of arms. Do I think they'll ever use these? Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They will use it. They will use it when you have a CBDC and a social credit score. That's when they will use it. I've been talking about the CBDC for a long time, and how bad it's going to be for the American people. And if we ever do go into one, guess what? There's almost 1 billion names. Yes, I know, 330 million Americans. There's 1 billion names. I'm sure that most Americans that have bought a firearm have bought more than one. That's how they come up with almost 1 billion names, ladies and gentlemen, just in case you were asking. All right, so this is how they're going to use this against us. But we have to fight back. How do we fight back? By telling them, screw you. All right, screw you. I'm still going to go buy my damn firearm. You can put my name wherever the hell you want. That's how we fight back, and we keep prepping. We keep prepping for the day that we hope will never come. Because one day these crazies will be gone, ladies and gentlemen. We just have to hold the line. Well, who are these crazies, AP? Well, let me give you an example of just one of them. Keith Olbermann calls for economic civil war to institute gun control. Like I was saying, they stick to their plan. Just like that judge, that Supreme Court justice, she stuck to her plan no matter how much hardship she had to undergo. These crazies will stick to their plan. Why? Because either they're being paid off, they're towing the line for their overlords, or they just haven't studied history. They haven't studied the part of history that shows that in the 20th century, that more than 300 million people around the world experienced democide. And what is democide, you ask? Democide is when governments take the lives of their own people. And in most cases, if not all, it was after the people themselves agreed to be disarmed by their government, because their government said, I will protect you. Well, how that worked for them? Not very good, because now they're a statistic. And this person right here proudly suggests that Democrat-controlled blue states should engage in economic civil war with red states in order to destroy conservative support of gun ownership. What he doesn't understand is that conservative support, and I'm not getting political here, but I'm just using his word. What he doesn't understand is that conservative support of private gun ownership is the support of any American who is a law-abiding citizen to own a firearm. It's not just for conservatives to own firearms. In case you're new here, I'm not conservative, I'm not Democrat. I am a human being who is here living in the United States who loves freedom. I hate politics. I think it's a disease and it should go away. When someone runs for office, in my opinion, they shouldn't run under any kind of a tag. They should run on their character and the policies by which they feel this country will be better off. And then the citizenry can decide whether this person, is adequate to do the job. But there also has to be a way of a president or Senate member or Congress member to be recalled and kicked out of their jobs because they're not doing it the way that they said they would do it when they got voted in. So this person says here, there is only one way to stop mass shootings. The blue states must financially starve the red states, the gun lobby, the GOP, the death lobby, and the crooked judiciary into submission. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Some states are already starving other states. And this is a great recipe. What this, I was going to call him a gentleman. What this person right here is suggesting is that we do what we were doing as a nation prior to the Civil War. See, a lot of people think that the Civil War was because of slavery. No, it wasn't. It was a war of secession. It was a war because most of the states in the South were getting ripped off by most of the states in the North. The states in the North were consumers, where the states in the South were producers. And they got tired of getting ripped off by the government taking their treasure and giving it to someone else that did not earn it. And they were like, hey, I want out of this deal. That's why the Civil War started. And then it was turned into a war about slavery for political reasons. It was a tool that Lincoln used in order to get some states on his side that he needed in order to fight the war more effectively. And if you don't believe me, just go ahead and look that up. I know it's not an easy truth to absorb, depending on who you are, but just study your history, ladies and gentlemen. They've lied to us for so long that the truth is now nothing but a blur. And let me show you, ladies and gentlemen, that people are awake. People do understand what's going on, and that is what gives me hope. World Government Summit suggests crises events are a useful path to globalism. Incredible. Never let a good crisis go to waste, right? The following clip of Bremer's speech is yet another example of a globalist saying the quiet part out loud. They always say what they want to do, it's just that most of us don't pay attention. They view crises events as useful for furthering centralization. And Bremer includes this health crisis that we've had for the last I don't know how many years in his list of valuable disasters. You understand that? The globalists love crises. And I've stated this in the past. Governments love crises because it allows them to impose more control upon you, the plebe. So why does he think this? He does not elaborate why crises are good, but it is likely because disasters cause public fear, and fear is easy to exploit. But this gives me hope. If you click on his tweet, you'll see a couple of the responses that were given. And here it says, globalism was the goal of course, people don't want to think about that. That was the goal of the little guy with the mustache. It was globalism. He wanted to control the entire world from one place. But now that's what we're fighting for. Now, not we, what people are fighting for. We need a one world government. I watched a very short clip of Elon Musk speaking, I think it was at the WEF event. He was speaking there. But good for him that he spoke the truth. Either very eloquently, very safely, but he spoke the truth. And what he said is this. He said, paraphrasing, I don't think that a one world government would work. And we have to be careful about imposing a one world government. And this is why. And it makes a lot of sense. He says, if you look back at history, there have been many governments that failed. Throughout civilization, there have been many governments that failed. However, since it was not a one world government, although one government's civilization failed, there were still others to keep going, to keep advancing. And he said, if we have a one world government, then what will happen is that if that civilization fails, then all of humanity fails. And doesn't that just make sense? To me it does, but to them it doesn't. To them it's an ideology that will die the day that they are put 6 foot under. And then looking at this last one here where it says Mega Dallas Dead Eye, it's actually simpler than that. The only thing standing in front of one world government becoming a reality is one word: AR-15. And I have to agree with that. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the reason why I feel that in the United States, we still have the very few limited freedoms that we do. Is because we are a population that understands, for the most part, how important it is to be armed. That it's not for duck hunting, it's not for goose hunting, it's not for sport shooting. It is in order to defend yourself against anything. Anything. It's why the United States will never be invaded. There will never be boots on ground in the United States. I'll finish it off with this last story. That way you understand how it is that one firearm in the hands of a patriot whose land is being invaded by a foreign nation is worth 50 firearms. It's worth, well, in my experience, it's worth at least 25, right? When I was in Afghanistan, we were pulling patrol. Right? And we were in the middle of what's called a wadi, which is a dried out river. All right. And we were pulling, defensive patrol, where you have your Humvees like this, in 4 corners. We only had 4 Humvees. And we were rolling with about 24 people. 23 soldiers. And then 2, we had an interpreter. And then we had a special forces guy. Right. So we get attacked. Right. We get attacked by a person from the other side, obviously, that had an RPG. Ladies and gentlemen, one person, one tool, right? I'm going to call it a firearm, but it was an RPG. But one person is all that it was. One tool. Had 25 people bogged down for hours. One person. You think any government, any entity that comes onto our soil is going to be able to win over 30 million patriots, even 20 million patriots? You think that's going to happen? I don't think so. And to finish the story off, that one person was able to take the life of one person and bog down an infantry platoon that is very heavily armed and well trained, bogged them down for several hours. It'll never happen, and that's why we need our Second Amendment. So even if you don't like firearms, understand that it is what keeps us free. Having said that, I'll go ahead and leave it at that for now. I'm going to do my very best, ladies and gentlemen, to have a live stream tomorrow. I don't see why not. I had a bad day yesterday, but it wasn't a bad day because anything terrible happened. I just personally had a bad day. But other than that, have a great day. I'll probably be putting out another video later on today, but we will see you tomorrow, okay? I give you my word. Unless something catastrophic happens, tomorrow we will be having our live stream. Can't wait to see you all there. God bless every one of you. God bless America. Don't ever give up your Second Amendment, America. Even if you don't agree with it, don't give it up. Understand that it is what keeps you free. Study history. I'm Alaska Prepper, and I'm out.